Welcome to Chrono Guardian, where we uncover the darkest mysteries of the past. Today, we unravel the chilling true story of Belle Gunness, one of America's most notorious female serial killers. From her early life as an immigrant, in search of the American dream, to the terrifying events at her Indiana farm, Belle left behind a trail of bodies and a mystery that still haunts historians today. But her story isn't just about murder. It's about deception, greed, and one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in true crime history. Was Belle Gunness truly a cold-blooded killer who lured men to their deaths? Or did she become a victim of her own violent scheme? Join us as we uncover the horrifying details of her life and the unanswered questions that remain. Belle Gunness, born Brynhild Paulsdatter Storsted in 1859, came from the quiet countryside of Selbu, Norway. Her childhood was one of hardship, with her family living in a modest home and struggling to make ends meet. Like many Norwegians in the late 19th century, Belle was lured by stories of wealth and opportunity in America. In 1881, she made the decision to leave Norway behind and start anew in Chicago, Illinois. Belle worked various jobs upon arriving in Chicago, mostly as a domestic servant, before she married Mads Sorensen in 1884. Their marriage, on the surface, appeared to be ordinary. The couple opened a small candy store together. But the business mysteriously burned down. Despite the loss, they received a generous insurance payout, which seemed to tide them over for a while. However, the series of fires that surrounded Belle's life were soon to raise suspicions. In 1900, Mads died under strange circumstances. Doctors couldn't pinpoint the exact cause, but Belle's claim of heart failure was accepted at the time. What made the case even more puzzling was the fact that Belle had taken out 2 life insurance policies on her husband, and the policies overlapped for just a single day. The very day Mads died. While some thought it was a coincidence, others began to whisper that Belle was not as innocent as she seemed. After Mads' death, Belle took her insurance money and left Chicago behind. She moved to LaPorte, Indiana, and purchased a 42-acre farm on the outskirts of town. The farm was large, secluded, and provided Belle the perfect setting to start anew. Or so it seemed. In 1902, she remarried Peter Gunness, a widower and local butcher. Peter had lost his first wife in childbirth, and his future with Belle seemed promising. But it would end in tragedy just months later. Peter's death was officially declared an accident, with Belle claiming that a kitchen appliance, a heavy meat grinder, had fallen off a shelf and struck him in the head. However, Peter's death raised eyebrows. Neighbors and even Peter's own children were suspicious of Belle. His eldest daughter, who had witnessed the incident, was said to have told others, "Mama killed Papa." Though nothing was done at the time, locals began to question Belle's strain of bad luck when it came to her husbands. But without any clear evidence, the authorities didn't take action. Belle didn't seem fazed by Peter's death. She quickly took control of the farm and focused on maintaining a facade of a successful, independent woman. Soon, she placed personal ads in newspapers across Chicago and other cities, claiming she was a wealthy widow in search of companionship. The men who responded to her ads, wealthy bachelors and lonely widowers, traveled long distances to meet her, but they would soon vanish without a trace. Belle's farm became a graveyard for those unfortunate enough to fall for her trap. In April 1908, tragedy struck Belle Gunness farm once more, but this time it was far more devastating. A massive fire broke out, consuming the farmhouse and its occupants. When the flames were extinguished, the remains of Belle's 3 children were found in the charred rubble. But the discovery of a headless woman's body sparked the greatest mystery of all. Was this Belle, or had she somehow escaped? The fire was initially ruled an accident, but as investigators sifted through the remains, they began to suspect foul play. The headless body, which Belle's neighbors identified as hers based on its size, left more questions than answers. Belle's former handyman, Ray Lamver, was arrested and charged with arson and murder. But even he couldn't provide a clear explanation for the headless corpse. Lamver, who had been fired by Belle weeks before the fire, had once been infatuated with her, and some believe he may have helped orchestrate her escape. But the fire uncovered far more than just bodies. As investigators dug through the rubble, they unearthed shallow graves scattered across the farm. Belle had been hiding something far more sinister than anyone imagined. Bodies, mutilated and decomposing, buried in various parts of her property. The true extent of her crimes was slowly coming to light. As investigators continued to unearth bodies from the farm, the full horror of Belle Gunness' actions came into focus. The men who had traveled to her farm, after responding to her personal ads, had been systematically murdered. Some were poisoned, others were bludgeoned to death, but all met the same fate, buried in shallow graves and forgotten. Among the remains were personal effects, watches, rings, and clothing that linked the victims to the farm. Authorities were able to identify some of the victims based on the letters they had sent to Belle, outlining their plans to start a life together. One man had brought $1,500, equivalent to nearly $50,000 today, thinking he would marry Belle and live on her farm. Instead, he was murdered within days of his arrival. Theories swirled about Belle's fate. Some believe she had faked her own death and used the fire as a cover to escape. Others believed that Lamver had killed her out of jealousy. The fact that the body found in the fire was headless only fueled the speculation. Was the head removed to prevent identification? Could Belle have staged her own death, leaving her headless double behind as a decoy? Despite numerous searches and reported sightings, Belle Gunness was never found. Her case remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in true crime history. Did she die in the fire, or did she escape justice and continue her murderous ways elsewhere? By the time investigators finished their work, they had uncovered the remains of at least 14 bodies on Belle's farm, though estimates suggest she could have killed as many as 40 people. The victims included men who had responded to her personal ads, her husbands, and possibly even her own children. Belle's legacy is one of greed, cruelty, and cold-blooded murder. To this day, her crimes continue to fascinate and horrify true crime enthusiasts, and the mystery of her fate remains unsolved. Was she a master manipulator who escaped justice, or a victim herself? We may never know the full truth. Thank you for watching Chrono Guardian. If you found this story as chilling as we did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime and historical mysteries.